Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Prep Your Standard NATO. Today's guest is Andrew Pittaway. He is the Archivist and Freedom of Information Coordinator of Fremantle, but in his spare time, he is a military historian as well. Thank you so much for coming in, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Yeah, great to be here.
Okay, so you were just telling me that you work for the City of Fremantle and you managed to get your hobby of military history into your day job with the centenary.
Because the Fremantle Memorial never had any names put on them, because when they were building the monument during the Depression, they ran out of funds. Mm-hmm. So they had grand plans of doing similar with an underground cenotaph type thing like Kings Park, but because of the lack of funds, it just became the cenotaph with the names of the battles on the three sides and all that as well. So when the centenary came up and the DVA brought in the grants, events coordinator at the time, Marie Lafreniere, who's now at the City of Coburn, she organised to get all these little grants for the plaques. Did the grants through DVA, and so when the council got the okay to go ahead with the plaques, that's when I pretty much did all the research as well. And because I had all the names originally through my research, I had started the book a long time ago in the mid-2000s, so it had taken me a while working full-time and all that to get this book done. Mm-hmm. So by the time the plaques came up, I had most of the names, but still had to double-check and cross-check because some archives had it wrong, and some people who were listed as enlisting from Fremantle, their families only moved in after the war, so there was a lot of double-checking, cross-checking, so it was a bit of work, but it was fun.
Well, it's nice that you got to, wrap in your hobbies with your day job too. It's not often you get to do that.
No, exactly, yeah.
So you said that you've been working, or you wrote a book.
Yeah, that's right.
What's the book about?
It's called Fremantle Voices of the Great War.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to Gallipoli in the early 2000s with a friend, there was a grave not far from probably Simpson's grave in one of the cemeteries on the beach of a well-known Fremantle or family name, Bateman. So I had a look when I got back to WA to see, Fremantle has a great history society, so I thought someone would have done something about the First World War, and that hadn't really been done. It's really good timing as well, because when I started the research was the advent of a lot of things going on the internet, from the Australian War Memorial, National Archives. So it was good timing that way, and I built up a case of initially finding the Gallipoli soldiers when I was over there, and then sort of building up, I can't believe so many Fremantles, not even just WA, just in a small community of Fremantle, were killed at Gallipoli, and then going on to the Western Front, and all of a sudden it's 853 names.
Wow, that is a lot.
Yeah, it is. And considering Fremantle's population hasn't changed that much, so you're looking at 25,000 sort of. It's a really big number from.
And a lot of soldiers left from Fremantle to go to the war as well, didn't they? Yeah,
they did, because Fremantle was a main embarkation point for West Australians. So, while Albany has got a lot of the media coverage because of the first and second convoys from the eastern states going to Albany before going to Egypt and on to Gallipoli, the Western Australians all pretty much left from Fremantle. The only exception were the Imperial Reservists. Mm-hmm. They were the ex-British veterans who were called up to the original regiments. They were actually camped at Fremantle Park.
Yeah.
And then they were obviously not enough space on the ships in Fremantle, so they were sent down to Albany to embark there. So there's probably 100 or so of them as well. So
it's a bit of a trek to be sent by ship back past Fremantle and up.
I know, yeah. But through the war, I think several years ago, a friend of mine had given me all the embarkation rolls, and looked through. This is before they were on the internet, so it was all trawling through the papers, and it was just like 95% of Australian soldiers embarked from Fremantle during the war.
Wow.
So it was a big number.
We should be doing a lot more around Fremantle for Anzac Day, shouldn't we?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I mean, I can understand the Albany connection because of the first and second convoys, but Fremantle's sort of gone under the radar a bit, unfortunately, that way, regarding Western Australians leaving for the war. So,
I mean, it makes sense that Fremantle would have this strong military connection, because Fremantle really is one of our most historical towns here in WA.
Yeah, definitely. And that was just in the first World War as well. Right after the outbreak of war, there was a Royal Australian Navy ship, HMAS Pioneer, and they captured 2 German ships off the coast.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were cargo ships, but they'd sailed from, I think, Singapore, and before war was declared, and they sailing down past the coast, and on their journey, obviously they weren't in any contact, and war was declared, and they were coming down to the West Australian coast, and they were apprehended. So
You just landed. Oh shit.
yeah, bad timing, but yeah.
Oh dear. Well, I suppose at least they got out of the whole fray then straight away.
Yeah, definitely.
So why Fremantle? Is it just because you work there, or do you have connections?
I sort of always grown up around Fremantle. Went to school in Fremantle. Then fortunately enough got a job there when I left uni. So yeah, it was just always had that interest, and I guess working at Fremantle as early years, you find the Bateman families, the Hyam families, the Watson families were the three like merchant families in Fremantle, along with the Sampsons and all that. And when I was at Gallipoli, I saw the grave of the Bateman, and it was the 28th Battalion, which was the local WA battalion. So I thought that might be a connection. So I went back home. When I went back home and researched it, it's like, he's a local Fremantle lad, one of two of the Batemans to die in the war. So, and same with the Hyams, they lost two in the war, and the Watsons, whose father started the Watsonia Company, they lost two in a war as well. So all these families had all these losses in a war. When you're researching, and it gets quite sad actually when you're
it can be a bit overwhelming.
Families, so, yeah.
So you went to Gallipoli, you saw a grave, something clicked in your head, you came back, and then you spent years writing a book.
Pretty much, yeah. You don't want to become a hermit. I mean, I probably could have done it quicker, but yeah, you don't want to become a hermit or not catch up with friends or family, so you still got to...
You're still going to have a life.
And you work full time, so you do bits and pieces when you can. And, and in the early days, a lot of it was pre-internet, a lot of things going on the internet, so it was hard copy documents going through them, whereas now you put like a keyword in a search database and everything comes up.
How much easier is research now that we have the internet?
I know, it's great. I mean, institutions like the Australian War Memorial, National Archives, they're just brilliant what they put online for families, research to actually access. Because I think in the early days I had 3 or 4 trips to Canberra in 2 years to get into their archives, and then now all that stuff's on the internet. So,
you just type it in and up it comes.
Yeah. And as much as I like going over there, it's just like so easy now to log on and just get the information. But yeah.
So, were there any other stories while you were writing the book that really stood out for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, you get attached to soldiers and families whose letters you're reading, because the letters back then were just meant for the families. They had no idea. Like 100 years down the track, researchers would be finding their letters and diaries interesting, probably. So, yeah, you sort of get to know some of the people and the families. And one guy, John Luff, he was a caretaker of Fremantle Oval. So he actually lived with his family under Victoria Pavilion, which is still there. Oh, wow. I think it's where South Fremantle have their offices now. Yep. But he lived there with his family, and he enlisted against his wife's wishes. But at the time, I think there's a lot of pressure for people to enlist. Yeah. So he went away and he got killed. But reading his letters, it's like, oh God, you're getting to know him. And the funny thing was when a friend of mine over east, he said, "Oh, you've got a soldier who's buried in this Toronto Avenue cemetery in Belgium, haven't you?" Because this John Luff, he enlisted went away with the reinforcements to the 44th Battalion. And then when he was in England, he got transferred to a New South Wales unit, the 33rd Battalion, because they'd sent some men to another unit, and so they had to replace those men. And so the second reinforcements a lot of them were split between the 33rd and 34th Battalions. And so John joined this entirely different unit, so he got his letters about, there's one bit where he said, we've been sent to this New South Wales unit, but they're not a bad bunch, so maybe not as good as the West Aussies he thought, but no, we're a bad bunch. But yeah, and so he wrote a lot of letters, and when he was killed at Messines in June 1917, he'd gone to help a friend of his who was wounded, and a shell came and killed him. But he's buried in this Toronto Avenue cemetery in Belgium, which is one of the, I think, only 1 or 2 all-Australian cemeteries in the Western Front. And when Brendan Nelson was ambassador over there, he was looking for a story to do his Anzac Day address about one of these soldiers. And so a friend of mine over here said, you've got a soldier buried there, don't you? So I sent him all the information, not knowing that Brendan Nelson would actually use this story. And then he even after his Anzac Day address, he actually left a signed, thank you for your service and sacrifice type thing, a photo of John Luff and his family on the grave. Oh, wow. And unbeknownst to me, the Rolly Rayfield, who had actually given me his John Luff's story, who's John Luff's great-grandson, I think it was going on a battlefield tour just a day or two later and saw the photo and found, he's like, what's this? And then it's been great because then Rolly and Brennan were in contact, and in the Australian War Memorials near First World War Gallery, there's a story of John's wife and kids, and it's in the last gallery of the First World War, sort of like the aftermath sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's here really how some things just take on a life of their own.
Yeah, they just snowball, don't they? Now, you also work with the Fallen Diggers group?
Yeah. So me and a chap named Dennis Frank in Melbourne, we actually met at Sandra Plow's book launch, Sandra Plow and Tim Lycett's book launch in Melbourne in 2013, 2014, I think. And so I'd never met Dennis before, and we were just talking after the book launch. And one of the soldiers is right towards the last bit of my book. I found this in Frederick Graham's service record. There was a letter from the authorities saying it's in the 1920s, and they were saying we found a soldier on a battlefield of Belgium. We know his surname's Graham. We found effects with him. I had the surname of Graham, but it's one of two soldiers. And so I asked both these families. One was Frederick Graham from Fremantle, another one was a Victorian soldier. Did your son own a gold ring? And they described the ring. And both families said, oh, he may have, but we weren't too sure. So they couldn't positively identify that soldier. So it was pretty much left to rest. And 10 years later, they actually found the other Graham on the battlefield somewhere else. And while they positively identified this Victorian soldier, they never went back to the original case. So I think obviously different staff or different things just got lost in time. Yeah. So when I opened the records, saw this letter, then saw the other Graham had been identified 10 years later. I wrote to the Office of Australian War Graves and Director Chris Appleton, who was there at the time. I wrote up this case and he said, oh yeah, sounds really good. So he forwarded it on to Commonwealth War Graves. And that case eventually got approved, and Frederick Graham got given this grave in what was called, not a Hagel dump cemetery. It's not a great name, but it's like, obviously, I think it was an ammunition dump at the time of the war. Yep. And the name it's just held. Frederick Graham got a grave there, and I was talking to Dennis when I was in Melbourne about this, and we were just saying, well, there's, on the Western Front, there are 7,000 graves of unknown Australian soldiers. Surely there might be others we might be able to identify through research. Because, quite understandably, once the soldier's in a grave, if they're an unknown soldier, the Commonwealth War Graves won't excavate them for DNA. And that's, understandable, because it'll just open a floodgate of, So what we do is nothing to do with DNA, it's just through pure research. So when we talked to Dennis about it, we just put our heads together on how best to approach this, and then through different friends and contacts over in France and Belgium who sent us photos or different bits of material, we found different graves. And like one was in a cemetery near Villers-Bretonneux, had an unknown Lance Corporal of the 34th Battalion, killed on, I think, the 3rd to 5th of April 1918. So when we looked, there was only one missing. And there was so we put a case together for Lance Corporal Kirkland, and that was accepted quite quickly, but not all that easy. But it's a matter of they might have a battalion on the grave, unknown Australian soldier of like the 11th Battalion, or unknown Australian soldier killed on a certain date, or might not have that much. But when we look at the Commonwealth War Graves archives, like we have a case at the moment, we're still, hopefully it gets accepted, but the soldier was found on the Pozieres battlefield with a ring, and they said, because when his body was recovered, they describe what effects were found with him. Yep. And the ring had from MP to C, or from CP to MP, and a date. And so we had a look through all the soldiers who were killed at Pozieres and still missing, and with those initials. And then we drew up a list and went through, I think there weren't that many, luckily, but went through the list, and then in this soldier's service record, we found a letter from his wife stating, do you ever recover this ring I gave him with our initials on him and a date of his embarkation? Boom! And so, we sent it off probably 2 years ago, and unfortunately, because it's got to deal with Australian bureaucracy in Commonwealth War Graves, which is in London, it's got to go through two sets of bureaucracies, really. So then, and they do have a lot of cases to deal with. Yep. So unfortunately, it's not that quick anymore. But yeah, we've put probably 50 odd cases we're yet to hear back from, and we've had 20 approved
Wow.
in the last 2 or 3 years. So
That's one heck of an effort. Well done.
yeah, thanks. Yeah. I mean, me and Dennis just because we both have full-time jobs, so I'll ring him at my lunch break. He rings me at his lunch break, and texts. Oh, have you seen this one? What do you think about this? And a lot of the time, unfortunately, there's not enough information. We've got so many cases that we're like 80, 90% certain that it's just could be the soldier buried there, but it's not enough to put a case together. We need just because if we put a case up, it's not 100. If we're not 100% on it, and we know the unrecovered war casualty section, which we send the cases to now, they're not going to accept it if it's not 100% because they don't want to identify the wrong person.
Yep.
And we don't want to identify the wrong person. So we've got so many cases just waiting on. We've put them to a side, but we've kept them there just in case something else comes up.
Just need that one break.
Just need that one bit of information.
Yeah.
Like if the wife had never written about her husband's ring, we may never have been able to put a case together for that. So you just need that one bit of information sometimes. And even, we found different bits in soldier diaries, and say, we buried so-and-so here next to, in the same grave as Sergeant Simpson or whatever his name was. So you do tend to, when you find, these bits of information, it just cements a case. It's like,
You're like, heck yes,
yeah, definitely.
Done it, ticket. That must be pretty exciting once you've got your case set and you're like, this is this guy. I know it is.
Exactly. Because just probably 2 weeks ago, we got the okay for our second Lieutenant Parks. He was killed just outside Villers-Bretton in 1918. And we just got that accepted 2 weeks ago. So he'll get a new headstone early next year over there. So
wonderful.
Yeah, and just it's really good because unrecovered war casualty section, who we send the cases to, they're so good to deal with. So they're really straightforward with this. If they think the case is not there, they'll just tell us straight out and say, bring it back when you have more evidence, and because they know the history and military research and all that, we're always, when they knock back a case, it's like, okay, that's for a good reason. Yeah. So we'll come back with that one if we find more information.
So have you been out to Belgium and France to see these graves?
Yeah, well, 2015, myself and Dennis were fortunate enough to get to a ceremony where they had 3 burials, not 3 burials, 3 what they call rededications.
Yep.
So once the headstone's changed, they'll have a rededication ceremony. And so, just by coincidence, all 3 of these cases were in the same cemetery just outside Ypres in Belgium, called Burr Crossroad Cemetery. And 2 were 7th Battalion and 1 was 8th Battalion. And 2 of the 7th Battalion soldiers, they were killed with 4 others.
Yep.
For some reason, after the war, they named, I think, because the friends took off effects and different things and dog tags sent them back to the families and all that. So, unfortunately, 2 or 3 years later, when their bodies were recovered, sometimes they couldn't be identified, even when they were found with other soldiers. So they were just buried as unknown 7th Battalion soldiers. So we put a case together for these 2, and they was accepted. And then Dennis found the families straight away. We don't like to contact families beforehand to get unnecessary hopes up.
Yeah.
But once we got the approval from the Office of Australian War Graves, Dennis looked for the families and found them pretty much straight away. Different things like Ancestry and all that. And with the 8th Battalion soldier, he was actually from, I think, Newcastle region, New South Wales. So Dennis said, I don't think you could find anything on Ancestry. So went to the local phone book for that area. And there were so many Nielsen's, so he just picked out one, I think he said the 17th name, and it was his great nephew.
It's crazy.
So he had no idea why he picked it, but it was the first one he picked, and then so all three families, the Huntsmans, the Ecots, and the Nielsens, all came over to Belgium for that ceremony. And we had the 7th Battalion Association come out from Victoria, represented by David Laird and Maury. So it was the ceremony was great. It was a bit overwhelming actually, having the 3 families there. The Menengate buglers were there, so a lot of local Belgians as well. And the ceremony was run by Colonel Scott Klingon of the Australian Army. He got a great job. He's based over in Embassy in France, and he goes to organises all the ceremonies for unknown Australians. Ones they may have found on a battlefield or the rededication services. So he organised a great service for the 3 families, and the 2 7th Battalion soldiers were mates
Oh.
And the families sort of retraced their steps as well
Yep.
on the last day, but when they were killed. So, yeah, it was just great to meet up with them. And, yeah, I mean, we've had a few people who say to us, it's 100 years later, what does it matter?
Oh,
But when you see the families,
yeah.
it's like, see what it means to them 100 years later, because I know what the loss of the soldier meant for their family. So it's like, yeah, great to, when you see that.
Yeah,
So,
it's the connection. I remember
it is, yeah.
the first time I saw a family member's name on a wall of dedication. I'd never met this family. It was a forgotten part of my family, and then I saw the name and I traced it to my family. It's a real, it's just that connection to that person.
It is, yeah. So unfortunately, we don't have the funds to go over every time we have a rededication, but 2015, when we definitely wanted to go for that one, because of the 3 soldiers being rededicated, and then last year we went over to Tyncott Cemetery in Belgium for another rededication where they had 2 machine gunners who... There's another case, 4 machine gunners killed together by a shell. 2 were identified, 2 weren't, and so we were able to put a case together, and the other 2 were named. So, yeah, and unfortunately the families couldn't get over for that one, but yeah, we're over there anyway. And
Must be very emotional attending those ones.
yeah, it is, yeah, particularly like the first one with the families, but last year as well as at Tyncott Cemetery, just after dawn, the sun was rising,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, you really sort of atmospheric.
I think I would have bawled my eyes out, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, because I think it was just after the big service out at Polygon Wood for the centenary of the Ypres offensive and Passchendaele and all that for the Australians, sort of quite a few bigwigs there. Because myself and Dennis, we just rocked up in our polo tops and, not thinking we were just kind of happy to stand in the background.
Yep.
Then Colonel Clean said, do you want to come and meet the Government General? Oh, we're not really serious. Okay, but yeah, that's fine. But yeah, and there's a couple more this year. One of the earlier in Villers-Bretonneux, one of the family members was able to get there, but we weren't there. And the good thing is we've got some good supporters in France and Belgium, so they were able to go there for us and represent us as well.
So how do these families react when you are able to give them this news?
With a bit of shock, probably, that someone looking into their soldiers' history and families, because I think sometimes I just think, they're on a memorial and they were lost type thing. And unfortunately, majority of the time that's going to be the way, because the shell fire, and not every soldier's lucky to have eyewitnesses to their death, or not all soldiers were found with their personal effects. So I mean, but yeah, I think the families, at first are probably wrapped it. So when the families sort of get in contact, and it's sort of like they're pretty thrilled. And I know one of the West Australian soldiers we'd identified was he came from Mount Barker near Albany. He was an officer in the 51st Battalion. He got killed by shell fire in a dugout and buried there. So there's actually 3 second lieutenants missing in that area, and from the 51st Battalion, but we were able to see, the first 2 were killed in earlier battles, which are further back, and this officer was killed further up the line, and we were able to pinpoint it through map references and good eyewitness accounts. Yeah, and so his family was still in Mount Barker, so it was like they were thrilled. And met them. When they came up to Perth, I met them for a coffee and all that, and they were absolutely thrilled. And even for the latest, Second Lieutenant Parks, he was Dennis, or unrecovered war casualties section, had found his relative, because they'd also, unbeknownst to us, they'd also put a case in for Lieutenant Parks. And so once they found out, they said, we'll work together more on this. And so they found a family. And then Dennis got a call last week from unrecovered war casualties saying, we found that his nephew, 95 years old, named after him.
Oh.
And so they called Dennis, do you want to get on the phone with us? Because they were over there at his house, and that was great. So Dennis was able to speak to him, and you're 95 years old, named after Reuben Parks, so yeah.
Oh, that is just heartwarming.
Yeah, and that's why, the relatives who knew about the stories firsthand are still around. So when you find out, they're still here.
How do you deal with the emotion afterwards? Like, how do you come down from this?
Yeah, that's hard, because particularly when you get knockbacks to cases, sometimes, particularly in the early days, it's a different process now, because we send the cases to the unrecovered war casualties and Office of Australian War Graves, who are both good to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
In the early days, the process was different. If we put a case together, we'd go to Office of Australian War Graves, who'd have a quick look and then send it on to Commonwealth War Graves in London.
Mm-hmm.
And because Commonwealth War Graves in London didn't have a lot of knowledge of Australian troop movements and where we were at the time, we got a lot of knockbacks early and went, how can this be knocked back? So we had to resubmit a lot of cases. And
Mm-hmm.
I can understand in one way, because Commonwealth War Graves has been inundated with, during the centenary, for cases, and
Yeah.
with all their archives going online. So it's not being critical of them, but it's just like we probably, our early cases assumed a lot,
Mm-hmm.
so we didn't probably go in depth to the degree we should have. And so when we got initial knockbacks on some cases, how'd they get knocked back? So we looked at the cases again. Okay, we've got they're saying someone killed near Villers-Bretonneux could be a soldier killed up north of France. Well, that's not going to be the case. So we had to put a case together to the nth degree, just explaining every little bit. So I think 5 or 6 of the cases we've initially had knocked back from Commonwealth War Graves. We
Mhm.
resubmitted with probably more expansive writing and more details, and 5 or 6 of those cases have been accepted now, because we sent them back through Office of War Graves. It's like, how does this get knocked back? And they said, we'll rewrite it. And then, so I think 5 or 6 of the last cases we've had approved have been resubmissions. So, I mean, 'cause I've talked to family members as well who've done it off their own back.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we just got knocked back, and leave it at that. So it's always worth resubmitting with further detail. And we've tried to help families out as much as we can. It's just sort of, we'll help them with cases, because still got to do one, which was a soldier was killed at Pozieres, and even in the service record it says he was buried at Gordon Dum Cemetery, but he has no known grave.
Mm-hmm.
And they've obviously lost a place in a cemetery where he was buried, but they have things called special memorial graves where they know they're buried in a cemetery but not what spot. So even though we don't know what spot it is, hopefully we can make a case that he at least deserves, he is in that cemetery,
Mm-hmm.
so get him a special memorial grave. So and things like that, you just, because we do get families contacting us and it's like, try and help them as much as we can, saying if you want to go and put a case together, here's what you need, here's who to contact, and sometimes say, can you do it? We have to explain to them, we've got full-time jobs, and but we'll do it as soon as we can, type thing. So
Okay, so if people do need your help, where can they find you?
Yeah, Fallen Diggers has a Facebook page, and also we have a website as well, so our contact details are there. Yeah, Dennis has just revamped the website, so sort of just search under Fallen Diggers, Andrew Pittaway, Dennis Frank, that should come up. And there are other people doing what we do as well, so we're not the only ones. There's people in Canada, England, New Zealand, all doing the same thing, I think. So, sort of, when we first had this conversation with Dennis in 2013, 2014 in Melbourne, it's like, we were just talking about 1 or 2. We never realised we'd have 20 approved and then still waiting on 50-odd cases just to get answers on, because we've also actually had a look at a few World War II ones as well, so we're waiting on a few answers for those as well. So
That's an amazing effort. Seriously, congratulations, well done.
Yeah, thanks. It's very rewarding when you do get the positive answer.
Yeah,
So,
I bet.
Yeah.
So where does this fascination with military history come? Are you connected or...?
Oh, my granddad served in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's one of the few people who was able to enlist with one leg.
What?
Yeah, he had a farming accident in the 1930s in Northam, so he lost his leg. So he became really good at administration and all this, and he enlisted, I think, 1941, 1942.
Mm-hmm.
The story Dad always says that he was limping back from the showgrounds after enlisting, and this guy said, "Oh, they knocked you back too today, mate." He goes, "No, I got accepted." And the bloke charged, "What? They knocked me back for bad teeth?" And so, so he had one leg, and he served in Australia and the islands, and not front line, but and then he served in the occupation force in Japan in World War II, just after World War II as well. So
Holy crikey.
yeah. So it's probably through talking to him when I was young that the interest first sparked, and then,
Yeah.
you know, looking through the family history as well, and my great uncle or my granddad's uncle was in the First World War, and he was wounded 3 times in the 34th Battalion and got awarded the Military Cross. So looking through all his history, and and sort of sparked an interest, and then did history at uni, cultural heritage degree, and then so I've always been interested in history, and then I guess because one of my pracs I did at uni, I went to the Army Museum of WA, did a research prac for them, and just got hooked and became a volunteer, and 23 years later I'm still there as a volunteer, so...
Oh, geez, good effort.
Yeah.
So are you working on anything else now, or is it just the war graves for now?
Oh, yeah, still working on different things. Thinking I'm going to look more into the Second World War Fremantle story as well. I mean, it leads on from the First World War story, because when you're looking at the First World War and then you see, this guy saw the First World War died in the Second World War, or the soldiers who died or came back in the First World War, their sons or daughters died in the Second World War. So you see those stories, and there's a big story to tell. But the problem is, it's like how I put it into a book. Cause there's a lot more numbers, because in First World War the Air Force was just burgeoning, whereas in the Second World War there were so many in the Air Force and Navy and in the Army that there's such a large number. So we're thinking how to format the book, I think. But still doing war graves as well while we're still doing that. Even this morning on the way here, got an email from undercover war casualties saying, can you give us a bit more information about this case? Because, before they submit a case to London, Commonwealth War Graves, they want to be fully sure. So that always keeps them busy. So.
Well, I hope at some point you do decide to take a break, because it sounds like you bloody well need one.
I mean, I enjoy what I do. So, I mean, I've got using part of my long service leave in January and February, so I'll take some time off there and just relax and do some more research.
Will you actually? There it is. You're going to do some more research.
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, work's work, but researching is a hobby as well. So So
fair enough. Well, I think we'll wrap this one up here. Thank you so much for coming in and talking with me.
No worries, Ash. Yeah, great to be here.
Look forward to seeing what you come up with next.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Cheers. This podcast was edited, published and produced by the RSLWA. Head to www.rslwa.org.au for other content. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook.